It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. This is another edition of Frontline Friday with my guest and co-host, Bridget Gleason. So you got promoted to co-host this year.
I know. That feels so good.
Well, you've been working so hard.
It does feel like a promotion. It feels like a promotion. I know.
You've been working so hard. You deserved it. Yeah.
I want it. I take it.
Okay, good. Yeah, unfortunately, there's no raise that goes with this. But, I mean, you get the title.
Okay, I'll take the title. I'll take what I can get.
How many times have you had that in your career?
I know.
We're going to give you a promotion. There's no extra pay that comes with this. But yeah, here's the title and a little more responsibility.
Yeah, more responsibility, more work, no more money. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Better than a sharp stick in the eye, but just barely.
Just barely, right. We'll look at your next review. We'll look at a raise. Yeah. So I thought that this week, we talk about a topic sort of related to one that you brought up toward the tail end of our last episode. You're talking about listening to Angela Duckworth's book on grit. Is talk about this topic of resilience. We haven't really addressed it before, and it's still early in the sales year, but fact is you could have had some setbacks, and not you, Bridget, but the collective you that's listening to this, or the theoretical you, and maybe lost some deals. Maybe we're just not getting some of the responses you want from prospects early on. Maybe not hitting some of the goals you had in the first month. Long year, as we talked about last week, a long year. How do you make sure you don't get discouraged? How do you demonstrate the resilience you need, the grit that you need in order to keep your head in the game and go on and have a great year?
Yeah, resiliency is such an important trait. And, Andy, I think the best way to develop it is, unfortunately, experience and getting up again. Where there's a Japanese saying that, I fall 7 times, I get up 8. I'm butchering it. Whoever's listening to it is saying, okay, you got that wrong. But it's something
I love it, though. Whatever. Even if you made that up, that's great.
But there's something about...
And if you could say it in Japanese, even better.
Even better. You just get up again. Just get up again. Just keep doing it. That's and I think what happens in that is when you get positive reinforcement after doing something hard and getting back on the horse, and when it's tough, making that next phone call. It feels good, Andy, when we do something hard or we fall down and we get up again and we get a good result. And for me, God, when I've had a setback, sometimes I would just push until I got that positive reinforcement. And then I could sort of relax. And it was just a reminder to myself, keep at it, one foot in front of the other, keep going, things will turn around.
Yeah, I was just interviewing earlier today another guest on the show, and he was talking about a podcast that he hosts. And it's been, I guess the podcast has been out there 4 or 5 years now. But he was talking about, he first started the podcast, like his first day, he had like 4 listeners or 4 downloads. And then on his first anniversary, he was averaging 9 downloads a day. Second anniversary was like 20, but the guy kept persisting. And now he's getting thousands of downloads per day. It's a big podcast. But he talked about it. It would have been easy to have been really discouraged, but he had a vision of what he wanted to accomplish. He had a goal, and he just wasn't going to be denied.
And he probably did feel discouraged, but he pushed past it. I think that's the thing. It's people who are resilient. It's not that they are unemotional, or that they don't get down or they don't get discouraged. They just keep going. They find a way to put one foot in front of the other and keep at it, and they are persistent against a goal.
Which is, yeah, very, very, very important is to getting up, as you said, get up 8 times if you got knocked down 7. I like that.
Whatever that Japanese proverb is.
Or maybe it's just a Bridget Gleason proverb.
It could be who knows? Who knows? I listen to so many things, and you think that my memory would be better, but I tend to mush them all together. But anyway,
well, and so
whatever
we talk about
it is, you get the gist of it.
Yeah, so you keep your head in the game, and so I thought you should focus on some real tactical things that you can do to keep your head in the game. And one of them, and we sort of touched a little bit on this in our last episode, but is, you gotta focus on small victories. I always harken back to when I was a teenager and I worked as a lifeguard at a pool and taught swimming lessons. And I remember reading in the Red Cross instructor's manual. This is ages ago. But what they said is, when you're trying to teach people new things, new behaviors, in this case it was swimming, is the most important thing to do is to give them immediate success and build off that successes. And, I've remembered that all these years later because it applies to so many things in life, but certainly applies to sales, is focus on the small wins. So think about what is the smallest unit of success that you can have in your job, right? If you're feeling down, it could be number of calls you need to make in a day, or it could be the number of conversations, or the quality. I want to have 2 great conversations today with prospects, or whatever that smallest unit is for you, and really focus on achieving that. Forget about quota, forget about closing, whatever that smallest unit is, spend a few days just focusing on achieving that. And you'll be surprised when you do that, how everything starts being better again.
Yeah, and I think, Andy, this point of setting a goal and meeting it sends this positive message back to ourselves, and it's this virtuous cycle that we want to create. And I remember doing that many times in my career when I deliberately, intentionally set goals that I knew I would meet. Not that it was an easy goal, but I wanted to reinforce for myself, I am a person who achieves the goals I set. And like you said, maybe it was making a certain number of phone calls. Maybe it was calling until I had 2 connects. Maybe it was adding opportunities to whatever. It varied depending on what I was doing at the time. But I was very deliberate about, okay, I'm a person who sets goals and achieves them. That's kind of the mantra. And I keep creating tasks and situations in which I reinforce that mental model.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in this situation too, it's important not to say, look, I'm setting 5 goals for myself. Yeah, just one goal, one thing you want to achieve.
Right.
And really focus on it. Get back in the game that way. Because again, once you got, and it's funny, I thought just popped in my head is, I always remember boss asking the question, when's the best time to go get an order? After you just closed one, right? And because they're talking about you're hot, right? You've gotten the momentum, you've gotten the enthusiasm, and there's certainly something to that. I mean, you see that oftentimes in certain sports is, a team will score twice right in succession because suddenly they're in their rhythm and they're in their flow. And that's what you're really trying to get back. You're trying to get that flow, that rhythm. We all have it in what we do, and important we sort of focus on that and focus on the things that'll help us get into that rhythm.
Well, and also in sales, people are attracted to success. They're just it's an attractive quality. And so when we feel, and they're attracted to confidence. And so when we feel confident and successful, people are naturally attracted to it. And so I think you want to be able to feed on that and really build on that.
Right. Okay. So another thing that, other tips to talk about is, seems sort of simple, but it's something that works. And I've had other guests on the show that have talked about this is, read something inspirational. Right? Feeling down, we take inspiration from lots of different places that we apply to motivate ourselves. Find a book that, who's out there? I mean, Tony Robbins, let's say, who's, a well-known figure that lots of people read. Tony Robbins, a very inspirational figure. It could be him, it could be somebody else. Pick something, read something like that.
Do you know, there's a company where I'm an advisor to this company, and the CEO gave me a book the last time I went out and saw them. In fact, I have it right next to me. I think I talked about this on one of the shows, called Devotion, Love and the Power of Small Steps. And it's a book that he has it in his office, and you pick it up. You can read something from any point in the book, just when you need that bit of inspiration. So just exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to read one of them, because this is one I remember reading. And it says, you are, and again, just open up the book. You are remarkable, powerful, strong. You judge yourself so harshly, but that's because you have such high expectations for what you should be. The person you want to be isn't half as amazing as a person you already are. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So things like that. I guess I'm plus one in your comment about making sure that you've got inspiration. I do it all the time. Like if I wake up in a particularly down, before I start my day, I will go and I'll read something. I'll find something. I will have some, and I'll keep looking until I find one that really speaks to me. That's going to just help me remember this is either transitory, or this will pass, or I can do it, or whatever it is. But I think that's a good one.
Yeah. And I oftentimes ask guests on Accelerate to tell me if they have a particular quote or words of wisdom that they live by. And that's the other thing to develop is, there's a book full of them, but also
your own.
What's the one, is there sort of words of wisdom? Is there a quotation from a famous, successful person that resonates with you, that then keep it close at hand and keep referring to it?
Yeah, and I found for me that those change over time, and they can be somewhat based on my circumstance. But I do keep quotes. I write in a journal. Yeah, I do. I definitely keep track of those. I think that's a great one.
Yeah, and mine actually has been pretty consistent over the years, but it's worth, for me, it's one that's just worth keeping in mind, as I go through my day. So yeah, if I'm down, I think about it. Or sometimes even if I'm too far up, I think about it as well. So keep me humble.
Yeah, that's good too. That's good. That's good.
Well, I think that is one of the functions. But so anyway, feeling a little down, a little behind the curve a little bit, then we're talking about resilience, we're talking about having grit, we're talking about persisting in the face of adversity. And so focus on small successes, get yourself inspired. One that I think is important, that certainly you would endorse, is do something physical.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've told you that I do my running in the morning before I start my day. And part of the reason I do it is it's a message also to myself that, first of all, I've accomplished something. It reinforces a discipline that I like to have. But
Right.
and also just getting the endorphins going early on as I start my day. It's been a great practice for me to be able to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, it's energy based. So it gets the day going. I mean, you're not going to go out for a run, then sit down and have a huge breakfast, right? I mean, you're sort of, at least for me, I mean,
No.
if I get back from my morning exercise, that's I'm running or swimming or biking or whatever it is, and yeah, I'm ready to work. Fuel up and start working.
Yeah, add some oxygen to the brain. It's good also just in the middle of the day. They say going and taking a walk or getting
Yes.
outside is better than a cup of coffee. You're going to get more energy. And I think again, when we're resilience also is just you've got to have energy, Andy, to be resilient. If
I think
you're
it's a great
worn
point.
out, it's hard to be resilient. And so taking care of yourself physically and emotionally is important because when your resources are low, it's hard. It takes a lot of energy to fight back when you feel knocked down. And so things you can do to preserve your energy and take care of yourself and be healthy and get enough sleep and eat well and exercise are all really very real and important components.
Yeah, and you read more and more about that these days, about the benefits of sleep. It's been a big thing in 2016. There's been a lot written about the benefits of more sleep, and which we certainly all could do if we allowed ourselves to be less distracted right before bedtime by looking at our computer, iPad, whatever, right?
Right.
iPhone. So yeah, I think that's really something to be said for having in your routine. And if you don't have it, be a good thing to do at early in the year, and you're here sitting there. Really, I think so. First week of February is what can I incorporate in my routine to help me, become more resilient, have more energy in my day, so I can really face the challenges that. Because sometimes it's sometimes hard to know which is the trigger, right? I mean, sometimes it's a lack of energy that can get you feeling sort of down.
Definitely.
So it's not necessarily like,
Definitely.
hey, something happened at work, I'm feeling a little down, and suddenly don't have energy and feeling a little depressed. I mean, actually, the other could lead. So, sort of in that same vein is, and this came from again a previous guest that talked about this topic is, one thing you can do to help yourself is to go help someone else. So
It's a great one.
this could be within work. You could find mentor somebody who's new at the job, somebody maybe less senior than self, less experienced. Find somebody to help out. A good way to start feeling good about yourself again, or maybe even outside work. Take an afternoon off if you're sitting there staring at something and feeling like you're not being productive and you don't have the energy to put into your calls, so they're all sort of not really good. Then take a few hours off and go volunteer somewhere, do something good for somebody.
Yeah, and I was going to say it doesn't have to be in the work environment. I think to do it outside, just helping in general, is fantastic. I think that's also that's a great one that is easily overlooked.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's distracting yourself from thinking about yourself, right?
Yeah, which is always a good thing, especially when you're really high on the mountain. When you're really high on the mountain, it's when we tend to be very self-focused. But that's also a good time to do it. That's maybe not as specific around resilience, but I just think getting in the practice of it helps when we are down, that we already have a practice of helping other people and doing it. I think it makes it easier when we're down to go out and do that.
Sure. Well, again, just the contrast, I think, is what fuels you and makes you feel good, and that carries over to work. So, you have any other specific suggestions along those same lines?
Um, No, I like the ones that we've mentioned. I don't have anything. I sort of see resilience, Andy, as just, it's almost a habit and a muscle that you've got to exercise a lot. We're going to be in those situations. I've had board members tell me as the VP of sales, when they see that if we're not losing a certain number of deals, they say we're not pushing the envelope far enough. So they also push us into situations where we are failing in a sense. So failing and not always getting it right 100% of the time is definitely a part of sales. And so learning how to just keep going in the face of it is a skill that's really important to cultivate.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the the comment about if you haven't lost, you haven't tried hard enough.
I've heard that from more than one.
Oh, I have too, and it's saying that's been going around forever and ever, and I'm sitting here thinking I'm not entirely convinced that's the case, but but that could be a topic for another conversation.
Write it down. That'll be a good one.
Yeah. Old sayings that we all think we understand what they mean, and maybe we don't, or maybe we should stop saying them.
Or we don't agree with.
Right. Or just
we don't agree with.
Just stop saying them. Okay. People. Yeah. The thing with being resilient, it's a. Other than the fact we're talking about going out and helping others, but to some degree, it's a little self-centered. I mean, in the sense that you really got to pay attention to yourself, and it's really critical. You do it now at this stage of the year. Again, if January hadn't gone quite according to plan, or something's gone on, is just don't ignore the feelings, acknowledge the feelings, and do the things that we need to do. Don't keep focused on, I've got my plan, I'm going to execute that plan. Especially if it wasn't really working for you. Get your confidence back. Focus on some small wins. What's the smallest unit of success you can have? Focus on that. Take inspiration from somebody else, something you could read, listen to, talk to, get physical, generate your own energy, get out there, exercise, move around a little bit, and then last, help someone else. It's always a good final way to forget about your troubles for a little while and come back to them with a fresh attitude that you can use to address them.
Yeah, and that one is last, but certainly not least.
Exactly. All right. Well, Bridget, as always, fabulous to talk with you. As always.
Yes, your co-host. Let's not forget, I've been promoted.
Do I have to?
No increase in pay, but I've been promoted.
Well, maybe we'll get you a new business card.
All right.
How about that?
Okay.
You can show all your friends. Co-host.
Okay.
On the Friday episode. On the Friday episode.
Frontline Friday.
Frontline Fridays. Right. So, friends, thank you again for joining us. We've enjoyed ourselves. Hopefully you've had a good time and got something out of this. And we'll look forward to talking to you next Friday. So this is Andy Paul.
And Bridget Gleason.
We'll talk to you then. Good selling, everyone.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.